Bulldogs football team after losing in the SEC championship game. Look no further than the locker room last night, where Kirby Smart was not yelling, no shouting, no finger pointing. He told his guys that he loved them, he appreciates them, and that the season isn't over. As for the schedule, there will be a 1 o'clock meeting today. I am told it will be brief, mostly logistics. The schedule looking forward. These guys have final exams coming up later this week, so kind of a big week for those student athletes. And Kirby Smart last night, when asked if that game last night could really unravel the season, he said no, he thinks it can galvanize the guys. He thinks it can recenter them, reinvigorate them. And he pointed to Alabama. When they lost to Texas A&M earlier this season, he thought he refocused that Tide team, and he needs his guys to have that exact same reaction to their loss yesterday going forward.
Okay. Heisman candidate Aiden Hutchinson was only 4 years old when Michigan last won a Big Ten title in 2004. Head coach Jim Harbaugh was at the University of San Diego at the time. When the players left the Glick Fieldhouse here on Friday after a walkthrough to travel to the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis, there were 33 banners hanging from the rafters here. When they arrived back here for their watch party this morning at about 11:40, there were 35 banners courtesy of Harbaugh. He arranged for 2 Big Ten Champions banners to be hanging right here in this room. And maybe it speaks to the confidence level of this team, but those banners, they were made last Wednesday. Reese, they still want one more banner up here, a national championship.
Certainly have an opportunity to do so, Gene. 976 wins for the Wolverines all time. That's the most in the history of the sport. And you see how they stack up as number one. As you have a look at this resume, how close they are with Alabama. Clemson Tide with an edge in the strength of schedule, and they won 4 more games against the FBI top 40. So it's a close race. You can certainly make a case for both, but Michigan in the preseason was given a 2% chance by the FBI to win the Big Ten East and a 0.1% chance to make the playoff. Now, we believe that Cincinnati, the only unbeaten team, will be the one that gets into the field. We've got reports of Cincinnati, Notre Dame, and Baylor all waiting to see what their fates are. Let's start in Cincinnati with Katie George.
Good morning, Reese. I'm currently inside Nippert Stadium, where a banquet has begun for Cincinnati seniors and their family members. It was already on the book scheduled well in advance. But with the impending news, they have televisions on awaiting the reveal. As players, coaches, family members trickled in this morning, there was a great buzz, a great energy, but they're also eager. Luke Fickell told me last night that this team has done everything it's been asked to do. He does not think that this group can be denied. And Coley, I know one thing is for certain. This team hopes that the committee still values head-to-head matchups.
Well, Katie, as that may be the case at Cincinnati, reality is beginning to sink in here at Notre Dame, where players and coaches are beginning to focus not on the college football playoff, but instead on the New Year's 6 bowls. And the anticipation to that end is beginning to build. Notre Dame players curious to know where it is that their postseason is going to take them. Not only that, also curious to know who it is that the Fighting Irish will be playing. We'll be finding that out soon. The conversations on campus all this morning have revolved around those debates. Once the Fighting Irish find out their postseason plans, well, everything turns to here. The Irish Athletic Center, where on the podium you see behind me tomorrow, new head coach Marcus Freeman will be introduced formally for the first time. Now to a woman who needs no introduction, Molly McGrath has more at Baylor.
Thank you, Coley. Exciting things going on in Notre Dame with their new head coaching hire, but all is quiet here in Waco, Texas. The players have the day off. There are no watch parties scheduled. Head coach Dave Aranda isn't even in town. I just spoke with him on the phone moments ago as he was boarding a plane to go on a recruiting trip. He told me even if chaos had happened last night, that's opening a spot for Baylor in the playoff, he wouldn't have changed this trip, saying recruiting is my only priority right now. And Aranda said last night he didn't even mention the word playoff in the post-game locker room. Instead, he was telling his team, you have to focus on what we can control. And a lot of people within the program are saying this is a huge departure from years past, where Baylor was focused on lobbying for the playoff. Now they're just focusing on their team race.
Well, Molly, it's certainly a remarkable job Dave Aranda has done as the Big 12 champion. The Big 12 champion who doesn't think the playoff goes in to the Sugar Bowl against an SEC team. We assume that will likely be Ole Miss, but all that's coming up much later on. But we're not trying to manufacture any false drama here. Cincinnati beat Notre Dame head-to-head. Notre Dame doesn't have a real marquee win to offset that. Baylor had a great season, but a tough loss on the schedule. So it's got to be Cincinnati out there.
Yeah. And I think Joey put it very well in his opening comment just about congratulating Luke Fickell in Cincinnati. We're not creating drama. We feel it's got to be Cincinnati. I just found it interesting, all the move around these different spots with the reporters. Alabama's kind of buttoned up, Georgia, and all these. Then you get to Cincinnati, it's like you've got a party going on.
They are so
fired up, man, and they should be.
Alabama's been in the playoffs 7 times in 8 years. Georgia is making it 7 years. Not really new territory. Bulldogs have been right on the cusp of playing a couple other times too. Cincinnati, Michigan, there's new blood right out of the place.
That's crazy.
How about we're not talking about Ohio State, Clemson, or Oklahoma. We finally have that inclusivity that we've been hoping for.
So we're about to announce the college football playoff teams in what order. There is still some drama about who will be number 1. Could Michigan just move up that one spot? Remember, they were a spot ahead of Alabama, and rankings reveal
I don't think these guys can be denied the way they've answered the bell and everything that they've done all year. It would be a shame.
I'm kind of easing into the show today for a number of reasons, I believe. One would be that I was up until 6 a.m. Eastern time. So many of you joined me last night on into the morning. I believe we were on until about 3:30, 3:45 a.m. And then I had to produce the top 25. That actually makes sense. And it again, you know what was amazing about even doing it at that time of the day or night is that it still came out and made sense. I didn't take the time that I typically do, but fortunately there weren't the games to digest. I didn't have to digest too many games, just about 4 or 5 games that obviously impacted pretty much 5 games plus a couple group of 5. So maybe about 7 games that impacted the top 25. That actually makes sense. And then I think I'm easing into it because of the time of day, because of the late night, early morning. So I'm still waking up a little bit, just grabbed a bowl of cereal. And also because of the anticlimactic nature of our college football playoff selections. So the invitational does have some criteria. So it's not a complete invitational where you're not inviting people to a party on a Friday night and determining you just want Jimmy and Joe to show up, but you don't want Mary and Sally to show up. So there is criteria to the invitational, but it is an invitational that we pretty much narrowed down to can only be invited these four particular teams. The only way less than drama, the only determinants that need to be made would be, number 1, I've seen response to my top 25 and just response to last night's show where people were campaigning for Michigan, people campaigning for Alabama. Those are the 2 logical choices for number 1 and the only 2 teams that I believe that have a claim to number 1. And I think it's a good debate. I think it's reasonable to select either one and then proceed with your claim, your debate, your argument. I think both teams have legitimate arguments for number 1. The other one would be just not necessarily directed toward this playoff and this Final Four, but just the overall selection of the teams and the approach taken and the value of a Power 5 schedule versus a Group of 5 schedule and championship. And if we want to take it to that level, teams like Baylor and Ohio State, Notre Dame has the head-to-head loss. So even though they're going to be ranked most likely ahead of Baylor and Ohio State, and I'm not saying that they didn't earn that, they have the one issue, and that's the game that they played against Cincinnati at home in losing by 2 scores. So even though Notre Dame is going to be ranked ahead of Ohio State and Baylor, if you want to take a different approach and argument to the situation, it would be that Cincinnati, as it was just posted on the ESPN show, played the 87th most difficult schedule in the country, and they're being compared to teams that played top 20 schedules. So unfortunately, we're playing two levels of football here. And so we've got to evaluate Cincinnati based on playing different opponents, a lower level of opponent, and playing one game for sure, Notre Dame, that would rank with the games that the other teams have to play. And then playing a handful of games that would rank in the lower echelon of games that the other teams play. Houston would rank with what? Where would you place Houston in the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and on down the line, the Power 5 structure? But would Houston go 4-5, 5-4 in a major conference that plays a 9-game schedule? Would they go 4-5 in the Big Ten, 5-4, something like that? I guess. I would think that they would be somewhere in that range, 4-5, 5-4. I think Houston's about as good as the mid-pack, mid-level teams in the Big Ten, somewhere in the 8 to 9 position in the Big Ten. The SEC, probably somewhere in that same area, maybe a little bit lower. ACC, higher. Big 12, higher, of course. And the Pac-12 as well. I don't know where Houston would place in the Pac-12. What do you think? Third or fourth? Something in that range. So that's just more of a broad scope, general debate to have, is the approach and the group of 5, because we only have 4 spots. If we had 8 spots, group of 5, come on in, get your spot. If we had 12 spots, group of 5, take your spot. Maybe there would be room for other opportunities possibly. And then, of course, 16. Looks like we've got our final 6 coming in, and this is going to be extremely anticlimactic. Ohio State at number 6. I believe I had the Buckeyes at 6 as well. I did. Ohio State, what might have been, lost to Oregon early. That ended up hurting, because had Ohio State been undefeated playing Michigan, despite the loss and not advancing to a Big Ten championship game, then the Buckeyes would have a claim. And they would have been compared right now to Georgia and to Cincinnati. So the Buckeyes move on to the Rose Bowl to take on Utah, and we will have conversations about motivation, I'm sure, for the next 4 weeks. Notre Dame's at number 5. I've got the Irish at 5 as well. This would be one of the few times that I would agree with the selection committee, apparently. But I think it's just so cut and dry and ironic that the season that produced the most unpredictability, I'm not going to say chaos, because the chaos comes at the end. Really, there's no chaos in week 7 or chaos in week 10, except for maybe some teams like Clemson early, who knocked itself out, Oklahoma a little bit later, Ohio State obviously at the end, that eliminated those 3 standby teams, those staples of college football in the playoff. So it's not been chaotic. It had the opportunity to be chaotic, because we had a fairly unpredictable season from week to week. Fairly unpredictable. Cincinnati comes in at 4. So the 2 decisions to be made were Michigan or Bama for 1, and then Cincinnati, Georgia for 3 and 4. Which order would that be? And Cincinnati jumps up. Did I see that at number 3? So that's where I would disagree. I would put Cincinnati at 4, or were they 4? Cincinnati was 4. My apologies. Cincinnati at 4. I agree with that. I would place Cincinnati 4 and have placed Cincinnati in my top 4 at that spot. Let me check out the chat and see what we've got. I appreciate everybody being here. The committee had absolutely no choice but to put a group of 5 team in. This is what had to happen. There had to be a bunch of teams lose 2 games. That's basically what happened. What happened here is that there was no one for Cincinnati to be compared to that only had 1 loss, except for Notre Dame, who doesn't play in a conference and played Cincinnati. So the committee was backed into a position to select the group of 5. That's what they did. That's what they did. They selected the group of 5 because they had to. I think that the group of 5 is still not given anywhere close to the consideration that this appears that the group of 5 is. What could the committee do? If they would have had one loss team to choose from, they would have selected them over Cincinnati. This is showing us that basically the group of 5 has to go undefeated and has to be compared to 2 lost teams. That's what it comes down to. Because again, Notre Dame played Cincinnati. We got the game that we needed to make this decision. Otherwise, Notre Dame's 11-1, not playing Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's undefeated as a conference champion. Notre Dame's going to be in this field and not Cincinnati. All right. Will it be Alabama or will it be Michigan? Alabama's played a deeper schedule. Michigan had better top-end wins. George is on his way to work, but listening. That's very comforting, George. Thank you. Johnny Bays, Notre Dame at number 4. Sorry, Johnny. Didn't happen for you. Unfortunately, your team scheduled the wrong game, the wrong season. It was the wrong season, the wrong game. And that's what we needed to see, Cincinnati and Notre Dame. We got the game, ironically, scheduled that we needed to see this particular season. That is complete coincidence. Had that happened some other time, Cincinnati, Notre Dame would just be okay, this is a decent game. This is a good game. Okay. And would have been forgotten weeks later. But that turned out to be the pivotal game of the season. It's good to see Ryan. Alabama's number 1. They're going to play Cincinnati. And obviously, we know that the committee did not want to see a rematch in the SEC championship game. So now we just have to see where these teams are going to play. But yeah, Alabama's number 1. They're going to play Cincinnati, and Cincinnati certainly hopes that the Alabama team that played LSU, Auburn, and Texas A&M shows up to play them. They will probably not get that version, though. Mike is telling us that Michigan should be 1, Bama 2, Cincinnati 3, and Georgia 4 because everyone should move up 1 for their win and Georgia should drop for their loss. Okay. Johnny says Notre Dame is one of the 4 best based on eye test. I would slightly disagree with that. I would have Notre Dame more in the 6th position based on eye test. A lot of close wins against marginal teams for Notre Dame. I would have Ohio State as one of the 4 best teams in the country based on the eye test. Notre Dame wasn't out there beating Michigan State by 7 touchdowns and Purdue by 4 touchdowns. And Indiana by 47 and Maryland by 49. Notre Dame was not doing that. Jesse Palmer is telling us right now, and I have great respect for Jesse Palmer. He has been one of my favorites for a long, long time. He is maybe drumming up some. I don't know that he truly believes this, but it's a good company stance for him to be saying that Cincinnati and Michigan have great shots, especially Cincinnati has a great shot, and he believes that that could be the national championship game. Michigan, Georgia, that should be a heck of a game. Should be. And for the winner of that game, they're going to have to go through an extremely difficult opponent and then set up against Alabama for the national championship game. And yes, am I slighting Cincinnati? Possibly. I am going to be shocked, surprised, which I rarely am by any of these results. I've watched college football for way too long, 45 years, to be shocked or in any possible way by these results. But I would be extremely surprised to see Cincinnati beat Alabama. The spread on that game is going to be wide. What are we guessing? It's probably already out. Alabama, Cincinnati. I got to think that's in the 12 range, 10 to 12, maybe more than that. Sage says no mark. Okay. Johnny says Ohio State lost to Oregon. Enough said. No, that's not enough said. That was one game. One game out of 12. Let's understand there's two different things we're talking about here. We're talking about the best teams, or who is better versus who deserves a playoff spot, who has earned a playoff spot. Ohio State has not earned a playoff spot. No way. But are they one of the four best teams in the country? I believe so. I am certainly now going to be more interested in watching the bowl games. This playoff does not hold much intrigue for me. Georgia, Michigan, okay, I think that's going to be, I'm going to have to think a little bit deeper into that game, but I believe that that has the potential to be a really good game. We're hearing from the chair, and he is a happy man because he had no controversy to deal with. All right. Johnny, Oregon lost to Stanford. Yeah, they did. Ohio State lost to a team that lost to Stanford. Yeah. Okay. We can play that game all over the place. Alabama lost to a team that lost to four teams. Alabama lost to an unranked team. Texas A&M, I believe, is ranked. They should be ranked 8-4 against their schedule. They should be ranked, not even close to not being ranked. Michigan is a quality loss by 4 to a top 11 ranked team. That speaks volumes. Yeah, that's part of the resume. People get fixated on one game. And so that's part of the resume. That's one point to make. But Alabama played a much deeper schedule than Michigan, and obviously took on an opponent last night that was decidedly better than anybody that Michigan played, and Alabama beat them by 17 in a neutral site. So there's another game to be considered. Yeah, the 4-hour show is definitely overkill this year. But as I understand it, Droop 75, this is a 24-hour sports network. I think they do nothing but sports. So they don't have an NFL contract for the games this afternoon. So I think this is what they're going with, is probably going to be the best ratings getter, even in an anticlimactic situation like now. But yeah, appreciate that. HSM Dabs, good content. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. We can definitely disagree, but still have a mutual respect. I like that. Good stuff. That's how long we kept the stream going last night, because everybody was calling. I am very thankful that I, in recent months, have had to say no more calls. So I appreciate that so much. And I was going to open up the phone lines today. I don't necessarily know that there's a reason to do it. We can talk if anybody has an issue with Notre Dame, Ohio State, Baylor, or with Michigan versus Alabama for the number one spot. We can talk about that later. Dominic, I'm doing well. Glad to see you here. Thank you for that. All right, our Cowboys guy there says Iowa is the worst 10-3 team in the history of college football. Okay, I don't believe that to be true, but that's fine. Mark, hope you slept good after a heck of a night with those callers besides George. I did sleep pretty well, only about 4 hours, but I slept okay. Dennis likes Alabama 1, Michigan 2, Georgia 3, Cincinnati 4. Okay, I think I've seen that. I am going to skip down to the bottom of the conversation because I think I'm way behind. No, I'm way behind. I see the timestamps on there, and get to what you guys are talking about right now and answer any comments or questions that you have. I don't believe we will open up the phone lines for what I just stated to be the obvious selection of the teams, and no drama, no real arguments out there. Again, the three arguments that can be made would be who's number one versus number two, Alabama, Michigan. We saw the result there by the committee. That can be an argument. Michigan definitely has a argument there. Then it's 3 versus 4, Cincinnati, Georgia. The committee was not going to deliver a rematch. And it's not such a situation in which they have to be necessarily criticized. They have made their way around an argument between a rematch. They will tell you that they rank the teams 1 through 4 based on those being the 4 best teams in order, but they wanted to avoid the rematch, and they got some reasonable results in yesterday. They gave them the leeway to say, well, Georgia goes from 1 to 3 and Cincinnati stays at 4. Connor says he can't wait for the bowl projections. Well, I think we're done with the projections. We're actually going to get the bowl matchups today. We'll get the New Year's 6 during this show, which I can't believe that any of us are going to stick around for the 4 hours. I will find out about the New Year's 6. And you guys know the way it goes here. We will preview every game. We'll give you a preview look early in the process, meaning right after the bowl selections come out in the next 8 to 10 hours. We will be previewing the games throughout this week. And then once we get closer to the games, we know more about the matchups, injuries, opt-outs. Unfortunately, those are coming. All the players that are opting out from these games will preview and predict all the bowl games. So you guys know what the deal is here. We predict and we preview every bowl game, and with a month roughly to go, and somewhere in the window of 2 weeks for the first bowl game. So today is December the 5th, correct? Yes. Today's the 5th. That means the first bowl game should be in 2 weeks on a Saturday. Typically, the first bowl games are on a Saturday, so that would be the 18th. So those will be the first bowl games. There'll be like 4 bowl games highlighted by the Las Vegas Bowl, typically on the 18th. We're going to preview every bowl game for you, usually multiple times, because we've got a month to wait. And the college football playoffs, we will preview and we will break down those games from every conceivable matchup. We've got a Michigan channel, a Georgia channel, an Alabama channel. Sorry, Bearcat fans, we do not have a Cincinnati channel. Iowa's offense performed even worse than I expected. I took Michigan to win the game and cover. I didn't even think about it. I didn't pick a score, but I was thinking Michigan in the 27-10 range, 31-10, 31-13, something like that. So they exceeded my expectations. It was marginally competitive / interesting going into the third quarter until Michigan made it 21-3. 21-3, I knew would be way too much for Iowa to handle, even at 14-3 with Iowa's awful, atrocious offense, that it would be almost impossible for them to overcome. They could be playing right now, and I don't know that Iowa, we could have frozen Michigan's point total at 42, and we could be sitting here 13 or 14 hours later and still waiting for Iowa to hit 42 points. Wouldn't that be an interesting test? Okay, Michigan, you're up 42-3. We're going to freeze your points, and your offense isn't going to take the field, or maybe your offense will take the field to give your defense a rest, and we'll see how long it takes Iowa to catch up. What do we got here? Pardon me for putting my glasses on. They create quite the glare. Theodore, loved the call you had from the Ohio State fan, then raged against his team. He had me laughing, and you let him go on and on. It was funny. Yeah, so that is really the big news of the day in college football, Jet Mac, that the dominoes are starting to fall here. Brent Venables to Oklahoma and Mario Cristobal to Miami. That's what we are expecting. Bushcraft, Ohio, thank you so much for the compliment. Appreciate the kind words and for being here. Johnny Bays, Cincinnati can beat Bama this year, but not in a championship game. I don't know what that means. They will not be playing in the championship. The bowl selections will come out throughout the day. This particular special will highlight the New Year's Six bowls, and then we will periodically throughout the day be hearing about, because the slotting goes from there, and so the decisions are made throughout the day. Joe thinks Cincinnati can beat Alabama. Okay, I love the I hope you're right. Swampy, good to see you. Hypothic theory. Michigan got snubbed. Georgia's strength of schedule is not strong. Look at the overall record of every team they played. They got boosted because of the names of the programs they played. Rob J. may need to Google that. Are the lines out? I got to think that early lines are out. I got to think that Vegas was prepared from the time Michigan beat Iowa. Dave says, will Georgia even put up 20 points against Michigan? Ohio State only had 27, actually. I would put a pretty large number on Georgia, putting up a minimum of 20 points against Michigan. Mostly noble, the ratings for Michigan, Georgia will be off the chain. I agree. Rushman, I apologize, and I'm sorry about that you tried to call a number of times last night and had the wrong number. You might have hit the wrong number. We just had too many people in line because we could only put 3 on hold. So that might have been just a busy signal. I don't know. Brittany and Craig Vance, let's go. All hail blue. Brian looking for an Ohio State Houston Rose Bowl. No, it will be Ohio State and Utah. Alan, good to see you, Nebraska fan. Alan, unfortunately, shut out of the bowl situation for quite some time now. The last time Nebraska made a bowl game 5 years ago against Tennessee. Wow. Blanche says, I knew Bama was a bad matchup for Georgia, but I was one of the fools that thought that Kirby would get the 40-pound monkey off his back. I did as well. I was not surprised by the outcome, and I gave Alabama a big opportunity, chance to win the game around 35%, but I did pick Georgia to win. Raymond, there you go. Mario to Miami. Silver. Bama beat the 6th best team in the country who was rated number 1, and because of that, they deserve to be the new number 1. I don't know that we can necessarily say that Georgia's the 6th best team in the country. My thought right now is that they are the 2nd best team in the country. C. Thomas, natty games are not going to be exciting. I agree. To real MVP, yeah, Bama got the bye. I hate to disrespect Cincinnati like that, but I do not think that they're going to compete in this game. Joe, would Bama rather play Cincinnati or Ohio State? Exactly. Cincy just shows Ohio State is better. Ohio State would never lose to Cincinnati. Well, I don't know about never, but I get your point, and I agree with your point. Ohio State is a better team than Cincinnati, but these are the rules that are in play, and Ohio State lost 2 games. Mark, good to see you, Michigan fan. Congratulations on your matchup there after a Big Ten championship romp. Matthews here, good to see you. Iowa Max Icon. Iowa would go 10-2 in the SEC. Bobby likes Georgia to beat Michigan by 20, and Alabama will beat Cincinnati by 30. The second one, I would not be surprised. The first one, slightly, very slightly surprised. Just slightly. Georgia has elite talent. The teams that we saw in the SEC championship game, they have 2 of the 3 top rosters in the country. The other one's, of course, Ohio State. If you just are a believer in talent, obviously it has to be coached. And I think the simple explanation for what happened between Alabama and Georgia would be their rosters are like this. In terms of 4- and 5-star talent, their rosters are like this. They're right at the top of college football. Okay? But you also have to coach and develop the talent. You have to develop the individual talent. You've got to develop the talent as units, the wide receivers, the linebackers, especially the offensive line. That's huge. What Alabama did to fix its offensive line issues between the season and the Auburn game, and then what happened last night is pretty remarkable, but they did it. And so the talent, Georgia, Alabama is here. Georgia was playing at a higher level. That was obvious. I outlined that in a video that Georgia played the 4 common opponents that Alabama played much better than Bama. Wasn't even close. But Bama, elite quarterback, elite coaching staff, and the greatest coach of all time. That's what showed it. Kirby's talking. Georgia, Michigan. Michigan's not going to win this game by much if they win the game. I could see Georgia routing Michigan. I could also see a really good game. Georgia's got to be a 6 or 7 point favorite. I'm going to make this guess. Georgia is a 6 point favorite against Michigan, and Alabama's a 13 point favorite against Cincinnati. It's my guess. There we go. Eric's asking, Michigan, Georgia. Yeah, I think Georgia's going to be a 6 point favorite. I'm not a Vegas guy. I'm no kind of expert. I watch the lines. I look at them just like most of you do. So I can usually go through the top 25 games and major college football games, the Power 5 games, and get the point spread within 1 to 1.5 points. Like if I guess them all and then look, can usually do that on almost every game. But yeah, DG, we're on the same wavelength. Ohio State's one of the 4 best teams in the country, but unfortunately for Buckeye fans, they did not earn a spot. Jeremiah, as we talked about earlier, you may have heard bowl selections will come throughout the day. So they're going to go through the New Year's 6 bowl games during this 4-hour special. Then once those are made, the bowls have to wait on the bowls that are higher than them. It goes in tiers, and once selections are made, then the next bowl can then make its selection. Why don't ESPN get NFL games? Well, they've got the Monday night contract. Texas A&M was a preseason top 5 team. Swampy McGee. Always enjoy your comments. All right, everyone. I don't know that there's much else to get accomplished here. Anticlimactic. I expected to be on the air for 3 or 4 hours to break this thing down. Well, once the games were played, I did not. But going into yesterday, Oklahoma State came that close to making for good conversation. Cincinnati played a first half that gave us hope that there might be good conversation if they got knocked out, because that would have opened things up considerably. But as it played out, the 4 that we got were the 4 that we expected, and those are the 4 choices that pretty much, based on this format, has to be made. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We are going to cover the Mario Cristobal situation to Miami. We will certainly cover Brent Venables to Oklahoma, and we'll break down these bowl games as they're released. Not necessarily am I going to be waiting for each and every bowl game to be released and post a video preview immediately, but you know what I mean. Throughout the week, we will preview these bowl games, and we will track everything as we typically do. If you love what we do here at the Voice of College Football, or even like what we do here at the Voice of College Football, and just want to support, we've got a USC channel that is our next priority. And I want to thank everyone that helped us get our Iowa channel to 1,000 subscribers, because that's key in terms of YouTube analytics to get the channel to 1,000 subscribers. So our next target would be USC, Alabama as well. USC, Alabama, Notre Dame is coming along very well. And of course, with Alabama being in the playoff, we should be able to build that channel fairly quickly. But all those channels are roughly in the 700 subscriber range. So please subscribe to Alabama, USC, Notre Dame. Thank you so much for that. I will be back soon. Be looking for the notifications. Please subscribe to this channel, the main channel, and hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live, which will definitely be sometime in the next couple days. Now that the college football season is over, the regular season, our schedule changes somewhat. I was going live every Monday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. So we will let you know. Keep in mind that we also have team-specific shows. So Nebraska, Monday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Iowa, Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern Time. Then we've got the Miami shows at 1 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday and also Wednesday at 7. We've got our Oklahoma live show Wednesday at 12:30. Ohio State at 1:30 on Wednesday. Michigan at 5 on Wednesday, and Florida State at 6. So I hope you got all that. Again, we've got shows featuring Nebraska, Miami, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Iowa right here at the Voice of College Football each and every week. All right. And if you would like us to add a live stream for a team particular show, please find us a sponsor and hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. You can always hit me up there. Any kind of requests or recommendations that you have for videos, I am here and listening. I thank all of you for your contributions, your support, and everything that you do to help us grow and build the channel. And we appreciate it. And we will see you all soon. Be looking out for videos that will be coming your way constantly, as they always do. Let me pick up this super chat. Appreciate that. DC XXX, please show me your math on how you arrived at Notre Dame being a top 10 team. My math, what is this? Is this like 8th grade algebra where we show our math? Notre Dame went 11-1. That's my math. Okay, I'm not really understanding the question. Notre Dame went 11-1 against a decent schedule, and the teams behind them did not go 11-1. So Notre Dame, just like any other example of any other team in the country, played a tougher schedule than some teams, played a lesser schedule, less difficult than other teams. They went 11-1 against that schedule. They lost to a top 4 team in the country, Cincinnati, by 2 scores at home. So that was not an impressive effort by Notre Dame, but it also was not embarrassing. And then they beat a couple teams ranked in the top 25 currently by myself. And I believe, I don't keep track of the polls, so I don't know exactly who's in the AP or the Coaches Bowl, but I've got to think that Wisconsin and Purdue, Wisconsin being the best team in the Big Ten Western Division, they should have been playing in the championship game last night, but that's another topic that we may address. Actually, I think we've come to the point where we need to address the Big Ten Eastern and Western divisions and whether something needs to be changed there. 8 consecutive wins by the Big Ten East, 8-0 against the West all time in the championship game matchups. So there you go. I appreciate the question and the super chat contribution. All right, we've got another one here. Let's pick this one up. There's a cat on my deck. Anyway, Nicholas, why did Clemson fall off? Number 1, quarterback play. Number 2, offensive line play. Number 3, injuries. DJ Uiagalelei is not nearly the quarterback that Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson are, and that is the most important position on the field. And therefore, even though Clemson has recruited top 5 classes and the roster is filled with top 5 talent, the quarterback play is not anywhere close to what it's been. DJ has succeeded 2 starting NFL quarterbacks, generational talents as far as college quarterback play. And the offensive line has never been recruited at the level of the other positions on the field, but has been good, has been developed to be good, but it was not good at all this year. Plus, their injury list was ridiculous at the wide receiver position, linebacker, defensive line. They lost their 2 best defensive linemen early in the season. Yeah, Clemson got beat up early. Clemson gave Georgia its toughest game of the regular season. 10-3 with a pick six. So Clemson's still a quality team. They're still one of the 15 best teams in the country this year. The program's better than that, but certainly a top 15 to 20 team this year, even with 3 losses. Anything else? Am I missing anything else? I do not believe. Well, thank you again, everyone. We will be back here soon. Please subscribe, hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live, which is going to be in the next couple days, and we'll be posting content soon with Mario Cristobal most likely going to Miami, Brent Venables to Oklahoma. Check out our Oklahoma and Miami channels, and also our bowl previews right here at the Voice of College Football. Oh, almost missed. Jared, let's say Georgia had to play Michigan at Lambeau Field. Okay. Let's say Georgia had to play Michigan in Kansas City. Let's say Georgia had to play Michigan in San Diego. Let's say Georgia had to play Michigan in Siberia. Yes, weather should be part of football, and it is part of football depending on where you're playing. But when they're playing under perfect conditions, which they will be playing for these playoffs, whether they play in Miami, it could rain, it could be windy, or they're playing under completely controlled conditions in Dallas. I somewhat understand this chip on the shoulder of some Big Ten fans in particular, or fans of teams in the North, that why don't they play in the weather? We want to see them play in the weather. I get that. It would be interesting to see, but let's also understand that all these teams in the South, Georgia and Alabama in particular, but all the teams in the South produce NFL players that then play in the North and don't have any issues. It's not like we can watch NFL games on Sundays in December and January and pick out the players that came from the SEC. Oh, he can't play. He dropped passes because he went to an SEC school. No, they adjust. So I don't think that it would be a major factor. One of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in the NFL played in the South his entire upbringing and college career at Southern Mississippi, and then he went and became one of the great cold weather quarterbacks of all time in Green Bay. Yes. Do you have to adjust to weather conditions? Just like Big Ten teams would have to play in 85-degree heat and humidity, which they often have to do in bowl games. So is that an advantage, and is it unfair? To a certain extent, it is, that Big Ten teams have to travel to Florida, but nobody wants to play bowl games in Minneapolis in December. So the bowl games are built to be a reward for the season and to be a pleasurable trip for the players. So hence, they generally are played in warm weather sites. But don't expect that Georgia would completely implode because they had to play in 37-degree weather or 16-degree weather or whatever. Let's also understand that weather is not a factor in the Big Ten until maybe the final week to 2 weeks of the season. It's not a big deal that it's 62 degrees in Columbus, Ohio, the last week of October. All right, very good. Well, thank you so much for that. Again, lock it in here at the Voice of College Football. We do our best to provide the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. With your help, you make it happen. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you all soon.